Mr. Linden, will you please read us out of closed?
Yes, Madam Chair. I move that the Roanoke County School Board come out of closed session for the following: for consultation with legal counsel and briefings by staff members pertaining to actual or probable litigation, and consultation with legal counsel regarding specific legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice by such counsel pursuant to 2.2-3711A7 of the Code of Virginia, and to certify that to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements under this chapter, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened, were heard, discussed, or considered by the school board.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Madam Clerk?
Dr. White?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Linden?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Greenway?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Clemens?
Yes, ma'am. Item 2.03, action from closed. We do not have action. Item 3.01, approve personnel changes, including supplement. Did we have anything that's presented on that, or we just?
No, this is just normally, Madam Chair, you would have this as part of the consent agenda for the regular meeting, and so we don't, of course, typically have action items for the work session. However, given this time of year with hiring, we would ask you to go ahead and approve the current personnel change, which is on board docs if you're so inclined.
All right. Do we have a motion to approve the personnel changes?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Madam Clerk?
Dr. White?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Linden?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Greenway?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Clemens?
Yes, ma'am. Item 3.02, authorization for superintendent to execute sale of the Cave Street Middle School parcel. Mr. Todd Cagles.
If I may interject first, just to, again, explain, normally during work sessions, we try to avoid doing action, usually most information. As you know, you did authorize to sell that parcel over by Cave Street Middle School. When you made that motion previously, we forgot to add in the part about authorizing the superintendent to actually execute the sale, which is important for me to go over and sign the closing documents. So Mr. Kegels is going to ask you to allow me to do that.
What he said?
Much just said what I was going to say.
All right. So do we have a motion to approve authorization for the superintendent to execute the sale of the Cave Spring Middle School parcel?
Madam Chair, if I could just add the additional language to also authorize him to request that the Board of Supervisors appropriate the proceeds of the sale to the school board for major capital projects. So we can do both of those things at the same time.
Good point. Yeah.
All right. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Do we have any discussion? Madam Clerk?
Dr. White?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Linden?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Greenway?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Clemens?
Yes, ma'am.
Bill short on the two, but there's no way to go back.
Item 4.01, major construction project updates. Mr. Todd Cagles.
Madam Chair, members of the board, we have Kamal Khalil and Eric Burkholder from Skanska with us again to do updates on our three major construction projects this evening.
We'll go over past and current activities on all the projects, and we got some photos for you. Been a lot of progress since we last met, I think is in March, but CTE is moving along great. They're staying on schedule. Some of the stuff we've got done at the site, we've established permanent electrical and water to the facility. They finished grading the parking lots. This is Plan North, and the curbs and the gutters and the concrete. Concrete paving is underneath the canopies on the whole Plan North side. We've erected the monument sign, and we've turned the west pond over to a permanent pond for sediment control. They're continuing outside on the site to set light poles. They're grading the fire lane on the south side, and they're moving overburden as needed. They started with the base paving in the north parking lot last Monday and Tuesday night. They erected the mast arms for the traffic signals out on Peters Creek, and they've started the sidewalk on Peters Creek. In the area D, which is the most finished, or where they started first there, they finished the track modern fold, which is the wall that drops down. Finished startup on the HVAC units. The boiler and chiller is working fine. All the casework's been installed. They painted underneath the steel canopies. It looks really nice. They've installed all the storefronts, and the VCT and epoxy floorings is done in that area. Area A, which is the front and the vestibule when you walk in, they finished the VCT and the epoxy flooring. They are doing the nice logo. They started that today. Finished starting up the units, the HVAC units, and they completed the casework, the ceramic tiling, the metal ceiling in the lobby, and the metal wall panels on the exterior. They still are hooking up the culinary equipment, and a few more storefronts need to be installed in that area. They started the final painting and then putting up the bathroom and the accessories and fire extinguisher cabinets. Areas B and C, which is, if you're familiar with it, this is the last part we're doing, or we started working that way. So they finished pulling all the low voltage. They ran all the electrical home runs back to the panels. They've installed the acoustical baffles in all the shop areas. They got the toilets and the sink installed. The VCT and the epoxy flooring is done in that area, and the painting under the canopies. They continued sealing the shop floors. That is done. They did the last one yesterday. It was the welding shop. Looks really good. And they're in the middle of starting up the HVAC units. Still have some grills, registers, and diffusers to drop for the HVAC system and ceiling tiles. And they will start casework. Actually, they're pretty much done on the bottom floor with the casework, and they're going to start next week in the upstairs. Installing storefronts, ceramic tilings, and toilet installations. So here's some photos. That is Plan North. They've got the base paving down. Looks really good. And if you look real hard, this is in the back in the V. They're forming up pour concrete. That has been poured. VCT tile in Area C. That area was cleaned up, and they put down the protective coating or the cardboard to protect your floors during construction. There's some stage case work in Area B, and some of it's installed. Gas lines were installed in the welding shop, and ceramic tile work in the upstairs Area B. There's some storefronts in Area D, and there's an example of concrete sealed in Area B. That's the shop areas. You'll see they're pouring sidewalks on the east side. The window frames were installed in Area A. The dust collectors are being installed. That's in building trades, and that one is complete, and they started yesterday installing the other dust collector in the welding shop. And you can kind of see the difference in the painting of the canopies if you look at both sides of that. But you have any questions from anyone? But it's going along nicely. Really pleased with Branch. They're a pretty decent contractor.
Pictures don't do it justice. I was over
It
there
does not.
yesterday, and it's beautiful. I mean, it'll start to look substantially complete. I mean, it looks great.
I'm assuming.
Yes.
Okay. So September they turn that over. Is our intentions that we put kids in there?
Oh, we're talking about Burton.
Well, no, I'm
I
talking
mean,
about
CCTC.
Mhm.
So I think our plan was to phase it in.
September is not what we're planning
it's
there.
like-
That's at the elementary schools.
Yeah, I
where
think
we
it's
should be planning in
January for the
September.
CTE center.
We,
Like over
yeah, we
Christmas.
should take
they-
possession in December and start classes there in January.
Okay, so we've got a few more months than the elementaries. Okay, I didn't remember
Yes, sir.
that.
And Christian's been working with the different programs, the teachers, to determine what they need to move over so that they can
Take
teach
over.
and what they can keep there to teach at Burton till they can teach until they get over there.
Gotcha. Okay.
It's hot in here, y'all hot?
Yeah.
I never
It is more challenging mid-year.
I have somebody
It's
on the
more
way
challenging
right now.
internally.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. But, yeah, Brent about got lynched over there.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'll keep going with this presentation on the two schools. They're going really well. We have no issues, and no delays. And as you all know, we're going the same phases, and it's the last phases actually. 3A, the lower level, and the 2B, the upper level. The library we started here at Glen Cove, but on Condo we haven't started yet. We'll be starting soon. We started on some of the gym areas, just normal stuff, painting, tile work, flooring, ceiling. Mainly like today and last week at Condo, they've been doing a lot of ceiling tile and ceiling grids, and a lot of drywall. Electrical work is also going on. A lot of overhead HVAC system on that school. That's all inside framing, drywall, windows, and they brought the glass a couple of days ago. They started on it yesterday and today, and we should be almost done with the windows. Outside work, there's a earthwork outside, and some we seeded, like we put sod on the ground just to get the grass going. Hopefully by next month we'll get some. As far as the retaining wall, we did some brick work, and that's done. They might come back for a little bit work, maybe cleaning it like with a pressure washer. As far as Glen Cove, it's a little bit. We have to wait till maybe, that's the plan, is to wait till May 28th when the school is out, and come back when the kids are not here, and then they can do a better job of finishing the whole thing. And that's what we've talked about. And as far as inside work, the same phase is going on. 3A lower level, the 2B upper level, and the library here. What's good about it? It's almost halfway done. We did some of the work. That's the difference between here and there. But the same thing is going on also, like HVAC systems, wiring devices, plumbing. Some of the stuff that's going on upstairs and downstairs. But they're almost like 90% done with the upper level at Glen Cove. On the outside work, inside work, the switchgear, that's also the wait for the 28th, so nobody will be here. They're gonna have to do a shutdown and switch over to the new switchgear equipment, and that will take a few days. It's a lot of work. Also, another thing outside for this school, the parking lot lights. We've done the trenching, we've done the piping, we've done the wiring, but we still haven't done the installation of the actual poles, and that should be done pretty soon. That's the retaining wall. They did, like, they took some of it out to line it up with the existing wall. On the right hand side, that's the earthwork that they did. When I took this picture, they didn't do the sodding yet. That's some of the inside work at both schools actually, but this is for condiv. You could tell that the cabinets installed, the flooring installed, and the work is being done on the ceiling as far as the panels on both. So they're the same thing. I put them for that reason, to show progress. And those windows, they show wood, but now they have glass. That's the plenum area. I mean, it's much cleaner now. I put one before and after, and still it looks a lot cleaner than before. And also I put for the ramp and railing before and after to show you, because we're using the ramp to get kids around it. That's the gym area that we still need to do some work on it, and the parking lot lights. Now everything is done as far as trenching, as far as piping, as far as wiring, but we need to get the poles and get it light up. That's the library work. It's an inclined roof, and that's where, like I said, we have a little bit ahead on this school than the condiv.
Yeah, and that's so you have natural light coming into the libraries now, or you will at both schools, And these walls and doors, remember, weren't even here. The libraries were just completely open spaces at the time. So this is like really, really nice progress here.
Any questions?
Looks great.
The plan is for that to for all the teachers to be in their forever homes by the end of the summer. So even though construction won't be totally complete by then, all the classrooms will be done and all the teachers will be moved into the spots that they're staying. So at that point, it'll just be punch list and some common area finish work to do. So by the end of the summer, the school should be substantially completed.
Will the teachers have some help moving?
Yeah, we actually hired some high school kids for summer help, and one of the things they're going to be doing is down here at W. Cundiff, a lot of the teachers are already in their final spots. There's only a few that have to move. Down here at Glen Cove, I think Brian said most of them have to move, so we've hired a bunch of kids. They typically help out on the grounds, but one of the things they're going to be doing is moving furniture and personal belongings and all that for the teachers over the summer.
Good.
So yes, is the
One of the rooms, actually, if you see this in this school right here, we moved everything in it, and the curtains were not done yet. So we put the curtains on the ground to show that this is going to be coming up next.
Where is that?
Any questions?
I think so.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Item 4.02, minor capital and maintenance project updates. Mr. Todd Cables.
Madam Chair, members of the board, just have some updates on some projects that we've done through maintenance and through minor capital over the last few months. The first one is out at Hidden Valley Middle. You've seen pictures of this one before. Remember, this has been a phased project. It's been going on pretty much all year because we can only work during the breaks. So we work during Christmas break, we work during spring break. Started a little bit last summer, and then the last phase of this project should take place this summer. Just remember what they're doing is they're replacing all of the corridor lighting and all of the ceiling tiles there. They had an old 1x1 style ceiling tile that you can't even get anymore, so it couldn't be repaired. It looked terrible. The lighting was in poor condition, but the last phase of this project should take place over the summer, and we should be finishing up there. Out at Cave Spring High School, this was a minor capital project, or sorry, this one is one ahead of myself there. We had a request to repair the scoring stand out at the track. The guys got out there and it was beyond repair, so they built a new one. The school actually paid for the materials for this, but our carpenters did all of the work. They did a fantastic job on that. It's already in use. It's actually, these pictures are a few days old. They've put vinyl on the end and metal roofing on it now, and it's just about completed. They were out there working on it today, so hopefully they're finishing that up. At Glenver Elementary School, remember we're adding staff restrooms in there. That's also a minor capital project. It's approved months ago, but we couldn't start construction until this summer. We actually are contracting that out now. We've already got materials on the way for that and should be ready to go right at the start of summer, and the goal is to have that finished by the end of the summer. Out at Cave Spring High School, another minor capital project to renovate the snack bar out there. I wish I had the before picture so you could see the difference. The guys put in all stainless steel countertops, new cabinets. Those windows, remember, are moved up about a foot from the old ones that were way too low to sort of be serviceable. All new stainless garage doors there. Bunch of other equipment. Just some progress photos. New popcorn machine. Can't have a snack bar without a popcorn machine. Hot water dispensers, pizza warmers, those tall warming cabinets. Everything is just about done here. The only thing left to do is that once we completed it, we couldn't get the floor into the condition that we would have liked for it to have been in, so we're replacing the flooring. That'll happen on Monday and Tuesday of next week, and then hopefully by next weekend we'll be ready to turn it over to the school. Out at Northside High School, remember we're relocating the Center for Visual Arts from the current BCAT location to 2 classrooms out at Northside, so we renovated those classrooms. They look amazing. Give a shout out to SSC who refinished those floors for us completely. And then you have new cabinets, countertops, new sinks, and plumbing. This particular room didn't even have plumbing in it before it started. We've got new furniture already in sight. The chairs right here actually have to be replaced because they sent the ones without the backs, and these chairs are supposed to have backs. So today is the 7th. They were supposed to be over there taking care of that today. It's one of the rooms, and that's the.
There in the fall, or with that being ready.
I believe that's the plan. Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And that's the other classroom there. So again, I wish I had before pictures so you could see the difference, but this is really amazing. All of the cabinetry's new, the sinks and countertops, all of that stuff, the flat files, everything's new. And they were really excited about the Sarah Cubberly is our art supervisor, and she took pictures of the sinks once we got the water on because they were really excited about the water going on. So I told her I'd put that in there. Out at Hidden Valley High School, we are finished with the artificial turf. They're already playing games there. The only thing that's not done, obviously, we have to get grass growing around the perimeter, but that's dependent on, it was seeded and straw. It just says dependent upon Mother Nature to give us some water now and get things going. There will be a 15-foot wide concrete walkway starting at this building going all the way down in front of the bleachers and then out to the gate and extending over to the curb at the field. So you'll have a concrete path to be able to get onto the field without going into the dirt and all the way down to the building. We just had to stop because the school wanted to go ahead and start using the field. So we held off on that. That's already under contract, and that'll be started probably second week of June once we're sure that their soccer teams are done with playoffs. But they're playing lacrosse. I happened to be there along with Miss Peterson for a lacrosse game. Took that photo there one evening they were playing, and you can see the kids are already getting good use out of that field. And my last update is the softball field over at William Byrd Middle School, also a minor capital project. The plans have gone to Roanoke County and had their first round of reviews. They had some comments. They were sent back to us or sent back to our engineers. Those comments are being addressed, and then they'll go for another round of review. So we would anticipate final approval of those hopefully in the next week or two, and then we'll be ready to start construction. We've already started getting bids on all the different components, the fencing, the irrigation, the drainage, and the grading work, and we're hopeful to be able to get started on that here in just a few weeks when school is out. One thing to note here that's really nice, we're doing subsurface drainage on this field. So there's a couple of things with playability of athletic fields. One is that you have water on them to grow the grass and irrigation system, which this will have. And the other is that you have some sort of drainage in place so that water doesn't sit there on the surface. Then you go out and play on it, and you damage the turf every time you do that. So this one will have a full set of, that's what this represents over here. It'll have a full set of subsurface drainage on it to get the water off of it quickly. Nice irrigation system. It ought to be really nice when it's all done. That's all I have for projects. Any questions?
Item 4.03, minor capital request, elementary school window numbering. Mr. Todd Kegels.
Madam Chair, members of the board, if you will recall, we started doing exterior room numbers. These are just some photos of the current ones. These are at, this one's out actually at Northside Middle, and this over here on the right's at Hidden Valley High School. That was at the request of the police department. They use that in critical incidents so that if they're outside the building, they can, and they're looking in through the windows, they can tell which room they're looking into. So we finished all of the high schools and all of the middle schools, and now it's time to do all of the elementary schools. So staff is recommending that the board approves $15,000 from minor capital to complete all of the exterior room numbers on the elementary schools. And if there's consensus to do that, we'd ask that this be placed on the consent agenda for the next meeting.
Is everyone good?
Good. Makes sense.
Okay, we can do that.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thanks for all your work, Todd.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm so happy with the way the concession stand looks.
It's really nice.
Yeah. so much better
Oh,
than what
yeah.
it was.
Yeah, I can't wait for you guys to be able to actually get out there and use
I
it.
know.
I feel like everything your guys touch turns out awesome. Like
Yeah.
all the projects that you've done across the county look wonderful.
Well, I appreciate
Please
that.
It's
We,
really good.
express that to your guys because I know we don't generally run into them very often. So make sure they understand we really appreciate them. They do an excellent job.
I definitely will. We put a lot of focus on making sure we do good quality stuff. So appreciate that.
Thank you. Item 4.04, recommended policy updates, Dr. Jamie Soltis.
Madam Chair, members of the board, I know how much you guys enjoy this. So I made a big blown up packet for you that has all the policies that are listed in board docs. The first page is all policies that just have to be reviewed by code. All policies have to be reviewed every 5 years. There are certain policies that have to be reviewed more frequent than that, like annually or biannually. So nobody has any questions. The first page, like I said, was just all policies that were up for review. The next set of pages is our changes that came about due to the changes from the last General Assembly session. The VSBA is also updating their policy manual. I think they're on their third person since, what was her name, retired? Elizabeth Ewing retired. So different lawyers, different language, basically saying the same thing. So the first one, she just updated it for clarity and state statutory exemption. So it added the sentence, and you guys can read, I'm not going to read it all to you, but will result in the office being considered vacant if you don't take your oath of office in time. However, if a school board attends the first meeting without having taken the oath, that alone will not create a vacancy, provided the member takes the prescribed oath within 30 days after the first meeting. The next one is one that does have to be updated annually, and that's where you guys approve for somebody to participate remotely. And with this one, she just clarified it to make it align with the actual Code of Virginia. And if you look at the bottom, it says individual participation from a remote location will be approved. That in the actual policy, I mistyped that. It should say by the chair. So in other words, Ms. Clemens could approve Mr. Hudson to participate remotely unless it violates the Freedom of Information Act or if it's challenged by another one of you guys. So you don't have to vote every time like we used to. Teacher removal of students from class. They just added a new statement that teacher deficiencies in classroom management shall be addressed in teacher evaluations. So teachers do have, by policy, the ability to remove kids from class. However, it's a problem for every kid getting removed from class. Sometimes we have to look at the why. Electronic room partitions is a new policy. That policy wasn't relative to us until we built the CTE center, because now we do have electronic room partitions where they can divide the room in half. Volunteers, just added to the bottom of the policy that access to school property by certain registered sex offenders is prohibited by Virginia law, except as permitted by court order or statute. So if you're a registered sex offender, it just says you have to refer to policy 3.12 to see if you're allowed on grounds. School visitors, basically just reworded some of it for clarity. It included things like school buses and school-sponsored events, so it was more inclusive with school visitors, and basically just outlining the fact of 3.12 actually had a policy name change to be, instead of it saying notification at the end, it says information. Audio recordings of meetings. Dr. McClung actually worked with this one when Chuck was going around making some videos for use for our division. Had some teachers question whether or not he had the authority to be recording them because it wasn't stated specifically in the audio recording, which it really shouldn't even say audio. It's recordings of meetings. So we decided to put in the line item, with permission from the superintendent or designee, a recording may be made of any meeting, professional development, or staff activity that is school related, provided the recording is used only for the purpose authorized by the superintendent or designee. And what they were, Chuck, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you were recording some of the senior defense work where they were looking at the different rubrics and making sure that the kids had either met the criteria or had not. Payroll procedures 4.29, that's an admin reg, so this is just for information. Mr. Bradshaw, if he wants to speak on it, he can, but basically the main gist is instead of it saying Friday, it says next business day. Is that the main point? Just because it's not always a Friday. 5.50 AR, once again, this is Jim tweaking our PTO policies and making sure that they're all aligned with the correct wording, but vacation to be credited like PTO. Half the vacation days will be given at the beginning of the year and half on the first pay date, July 15th. The remaining vacation days will be given the first day of the second semester on January 13th. Also, this isn't in here, but I want to give kudos for Jim's idea about employees having to decide how much they were going to cash in. Because if you guys remember in the budget season last year, it was like we weren't sure what we were going to be dealing with, so that allowed us to plan much better. Thank you. Evaluation of professional staff, that's really nothing other than adding that the evaluation is now maintained in GHR and added the word public to Roanoke County Public Schools. The support staff, because I just summarized it as policy was updated due to Code of Virginia additions and updates, I actually printed off the changes for you guys, and you can see the underlines are the new things. It's on I printed off that policy for you because it was so much new to align with code. So I'll let you guys look at that, and if you have any questions before the next meeting, you can let me know. Everything's in board docs. Also, salary increments and additional course credits. Jim added the legal section and added the statement, the Roanoke County Public School Board establishes and approves salaries for all current and school employees. 5.10.01, that policy is now deleted because the VSBA and Roanoke County both decided that it's covered now in 5.02 support staff, which is the one I printed off for you. So we no longer needed two policies because we combined them into one. Staff weapons in school. Basically, there used to be a statement that said without authorization of the superintendent or superintendent's designee. It kind of read like Ken could authorize me to carry a weapon, which I really liked, but he really never did that. But that's actually not what's in code. He's not allowed to unless it's an officer who's allowed to. And then it says the superintendent shall report any incidents in the annual report of such incidents. So you have to report to the state if a staff member, had a weapon on school grounds. 5.12, PTO, sick leave, and guaranteed income regulations. You just updated correct me if I'm wrong, Jim, you updated the retirement option to clarify the leave payout process and the requirement for how to go through it. And then basically all regular absences are assessed on the 15th of each month following the absence.
They were just confused on when they were processed.
Gotcha.
I just want to clarify.
Gotcha. 5.20, I also printed off for you because there were so many changes. That's the family medical leave policy. This will be good reading for you. It's got quite a few pages. But basically, the policy was so outdated based on the legal changes. The strike-through underline version, basically we struck through the whole old policy, and the new policy's on the front, and it's underlined. And I really also printed these because you guys may get questions about some of these policies. But it basically outlines when you're eligible for leave, qualifying family medical reasons, intermittent or reduced scheduled leave for instructional employees, when you return to work, outside employment, any of those things. And Jim, if I'm not mistaken, have they passed the new stuff with the FMLA with the people who are able to take? There was some legislation out there.
2028 is when that
2028.
So that's
okay.
not in there because it's
Right.
not.
So we'll have to fix that.
We will again.
Okay.
Yes. Right.
Sounds great. Next one is service requirement. I didn't know this. Was this a change or is this new? Basically, all eligible employees must be members of the VRS.
That's to clarify also, again, we've had a lot of questions.
Okay. Employee retirement benefits are governed by the rules and regulations established by the VRS. So you guys are getting a lot of calls, so you added that language.
Just trying to make things simple and clarify it so there's no confusion.
Gotcha. 5.37, he basically just updated the wording in the last paragraph. Doesn't say anything different. It just made it more clear. Employee change in an assignment was also, I printed it for you. And basically what this did is it clarified if there's a decrease in enrollment, the abolition of particular subjects, or a decrease in the school board's budget as approved by the appropriating body, which would be board of supervisors, a consolidation of schools, the phasing out of programs, department or grade levels, and other conditions may cause a reduction in the number of staff needed in the building, program, or department in the entire school division. And then he goes into the RIF, how it would happen if we ever had to do that. And we pray we don't ever have to do that. Last time I remember something like that was like 08 or 07 when it crashed. All right. Extended work plan, basically. There's a new process, and they removed the need to submit a letter to the HR department. The new process is to submit the resignation retirement notification in Laserfish, indicating they wish to participate in the plan.
Clarify what we're doing right now.
Right. And I will say that I've gotten some of those notifications, and I've actually called Jim and said, I don't think this person needed to do it. And he was like, no, they're actually leaving. So staff participation in political activities. We added, instead of just on school division property, to include school email, division resources, communication systems, or physical property. And I printed that. The next one, selection, adoption, and purchase of instructional resources. This is from Mike and Kim's area. And basically, there was so much change in that policy as well that it was just easier to redo it. Correct, Mike? So it's now basically, we have to follow the Virginia Procurement Act, and we have to purchase resources that are, for the most part, approved by the state unless it's a supplemental resource. So we don't get a lot of options, especially like the science or reading. I think you guys are limited to very few choices.
Is this something we could do to get back to you if we have questions?
Yes, sir. Yeah, if any of you guys have questions before the next board meeting, give me a call.
Okay.
And then the last one, parental rights. I'm sorry, not there yet. Suicide prevention, minor changes, but there were several changes. It's usually just changing for language, for updated language, for easier readability, and adding in the new legal cross references. Insurance management, Susan updated this to increase the insurance limits to minimize the cost of insurance. So basically by raising how much we would have to pay, correct, Susan? We're able to pay cheaper insurance and hope nothing happens. Student wellness, basically it's an update to the nutrition standards. Yeah, I'm sure you guys are aware now, the food pyramid we were all taught was wrong according to the new guidelines. So that's all been changed. The parental rights policy I printed for you guys and basically just put the exact language from the VSBA in the policy to under the custodial parent has the responsibility to. And also, basically, when they can look at their records, how FERPA, at one point, school divisions were charging for student records, and you can't charge for a student record because it is actually under FERPA and FOIA. I mean, FOIA, not FERPA. So that was that. And then the last one is a new policy that is required by code now. We have to identify and these are the things that are these unfunded mandates, a digital accessibility coordinator, which will be somebody who can bridge the gap. We're not going to hire anybody. We're going to work it out. Bridge the gap between technology and special education to make sure that all of our digital things are meeting the accessibility requirements under IDEA and under, what is that new thing we have? WCAG. It used to be like we didn't have to make anything eligible that was on our side, accessible that was on the hidden private side, but now you do as well.
Well, I've been wondering about that WCAG policy.
I was wondering if you were. That's the law. We were hoping it would go away. And then the last thing I'll mention, because the very last page is all just minor grammatical changes, but the very last one, Student Advisory Council bylaws, it's an admin reg, but just to let you know that all but one of the kids voted that there should be an attendance policy to be on the Student Advisory Council. And I think that's because they're having some chronic kids or kids that are chronically not showing up for it, which makes them not really effective on the council.
I would also say if that's the case, that they have someone brought alternates that would step up if that happens.
I think
'cause
a good idea.
I hate to see
A spot go away.
Spot go away.
We wouldn't let that happen, but I'll,
No, that's the point. Somebody else needs to take their place to attend if they're not. So yeah, that's the idea.
Yep.
and I know that was quick, but I know you guys also don't want me to sit here and read all the policy changes. So like Mr. Greenway said, if you guys can take a little bit of time and look over them, if you have any questions on any of them, I'd be happy to present that policy again at the actual meeting before you adopt.
Thank you.
Thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
And we'll have another batch next meeting.
There's going to be a bigger batch coming, and that's because the VSBA is still working out the ones that are the governor has signed in the law. So I say bigger batch. We'll pray it's not.
Item 4.05, review of current RCPS capital improvement plan, Dr. Ken Nicely.
All right. So, board members, you have several documents in front of you. You've got the full slides in case you want to take notes. You have 2 written reports, and you also have the summary current CIP showing anticipated costs. So the purpose of this presentation is really just to start a conversation, just to kind of go back through to remind everyone why we are, where we are and how that all came about, and so that you can start a discussion about possible next steps and things to consider as you move forward with the CIP in terms of any potential needed changes, because as you know, back in 2019 is when the current CIP was developed, and that's been a few years ago. So the conditions could have changed and so forth. So back in 2019, basically, there was a CIP in place, and the school board at the time came to me and said, we would like for you to make some recommendations around what the CIP should look like in terms of the order of priorities, but we really want you to look at this from an instructional standpoint. So that was the impetus of the work that we did in 2019. And so what I want to do this afternoon is just briefly kind of go back through what we reported to the board in 2019 and what that process was like. And again, so that you can start a conversation about potentially, things need to be looked at with any changes. So the 2 documents that you have, one is called 2019 School Renovation Priorities Assessment Report. This is literally the report that we developed and gave to the board. So much of what I'm going to explain out loud is in writing right here. So if you want to go back and read through some of the history, it's in writing. The second document is called The Critical Need to Develop and Maintain Modern K-12 School Facilities. And included in that report is also a discussion about William Byrd High School in particular. And the reason that document was developed was because when we made the recommendation that William Byrd High School should be the #1 priority with the new CIP that we recommended you adopt in 2019, there were some questions around that because there were some misconceptions and misunderstandings in the community that, hey, William Byrd High School had already been renovated. And so this document explains why that wasn't the case. There were certainly some additions that were done. There were some renovations, but that was the last high school that had not been completely renovated. In Roanoke County, of course, Hidden Valley High School being a brand new school that was opened in 2002. So the purpose of that document is to sort of explain why this is important. Why should we be caring about the condition of our school facilities? And particularly addressing the William Byrd High School question. Okay, so those you just kind of lay aside, read at your leisure to sort of go back and review much of what I'm going to explain out loud. So going through the slides, basically want to cover 3 different topics. How was the 2019 CIP developed? What's the status currently of that CIP? And then thirdly, and for your discussion, what information is needed for future planning? So first, how it was developed. So this series of slides right here are literally the slides that we presented to you in 2019. So every time it says assessment report July 2019, that's there because this is literally what we reported to you at the time. So again, some background information that we gave you about why looking at facilities is important. We're talking about the research that exists. There's actually a line of research, including some research out of Virginia Tech with Dr. Earthman up there, linking and drawing a correlation between condition of facilities and student achievement. Does it make a difference? And the answer to that is yes. There is some research that would suggest that it is important in terms of student outcomes, right? Student attendance, in addition to academic, achievement outcomes. The CIP, of course, is basically a projection of needs over a period of time. Does not include everything, but it is a projection in terms of what the bonding borrowing formula looks like, and then what is a projected timeline about to say when can these things be completed. So again, as I already stated, the board did request that we do this study from a teaching and learning or instructional point of view. So back in 2019, we had a lot of information to go on. There have been quite a few studies that have been done over those previous years, including the whole Blue Ribbon Committee report that was done. That was the report that led to the idea that instead of building one new Cave Spring High School, that it actually should be split and have two smaller high schools. And so out of that Blue Ribbon Committee was the birth of Hidden Valley High School, of course, which opened in 2002. There were other phases of that. There were some staff recommendations. 2016, this OWPR study, that was the company that was a third-party vendor that was hired to do a comprehensive review of a lot of the infrastructure of several of the facilities. And so we went back and looked at that and based our recommendations on that. And of course, based on the previous CIP. Some things that we looked at the time, this was true at the time in terms of things we knew. For example, Burlington Elementary was still being studied because there had been some renovations there. There had been an addition put on, but a lot of that school is still reflects the 1930s version of that school, which are great buildings. We have several schools that were built during that era, which have served us well. But some of that school it truly dates back decades. We talked about at the time that the need that Byrd High School, contrary to popular belief, still had some huge issues that had not been addressed, including the science labs. Glenver Elementary School we drew some attention to just because there had been some renovations up there. Glenver Elementary as well as Penn Forest were two schools that also had some of that open concept classroom style. Glenver was a little different. It's more like kind of like East Salem over here, really, where I went to kindergarten, where you had to walk through classrooms to get to other classrooms, but they were not open pods, like Glen Cove and Condiff were. But there were still some things that we were looking at, and of course at that time the Cave Spring High School renovation was in process. So we looked at those reports. The green box there just kind of lists what the CIP listed at that time in terms of priorities. And so Byrd High School, Hidden Valley Middle, Burlington, Glenver, Condiff, Glen Cove are all on the list. Notably absent at that time was Burton, for example, was never even on the previous CIP as an identified need. Also notably, I think Northside Middle School, which we came back and said, hey, those should be priorities. We reported, what are the schools that were built before 73 that still had some major needs, and so those schools are listed there. So those became a lot of the focus of the study, and it's really a comprehensive look again based on those previous reports done by outside vendors, the OWPR group especially. We were looking at classroom sizes. There's a lot of variability there, comparing that to what state code calls for. Versus what the actual situation is. So location of classrooms, numbers, all the infrastructure, size of cafeteria, size of gyms, administrative space, some of the specialty spaces in the schools. Those were all considered in our study. So we used all those reports. We did some on-site visits. This is a collective committee that we put together to sort of do a kind of a qualitative research process where we kind of code things and say, okay, these are things that kind of rise to the top in terms of what the needs are. Try to quantify that in some fashion. I still have a spreadsheet, in fact, where we kind of quantified to try to rank these things. So we really tried to use a very methodical approach to identify these needs. Just to kind of highlight some of the things that we highlighted at the time. So just as a reminder, Burlington Elementary, those parts in red are actually some of the original spaces and areas of concern. That wing over to the left, the kindergarten wing, that's a relatively newer construction. So we highlighted that, but that the gymnasium back in the back, if you've ever been there, you have to actually go downstairs to get to the gym. So that was sort of noted. Burton Center, of course, we've obviously crossed that bridge and are on to better things, but we did bring that to the board's attention and said it really does need to be completely replaced. Cundiff Elementary, just like Glen Cove, we highlighted, of course, the open classrooms. Glenver Elementary, those red boxes kind of highlight some of the classrooms where you have to go through one class to get to another. But they're not open classes like Cundiff and Glen Cove, were. Hidden Valley Middle School, of course, was on the list, and so we listed all of the concerns and issues, at that building. That building, of course, was built in '72. And there's all those brick interiors. I mean, for several decades, that was sort of a state of the art school. In fact, a lot of district events were held over there. But over time, of course, the wear and tear has definitely been there. Northside Middle School, shockingly, was not previously on the list, but we did take a look at that and noted several of the deficits there, including classroom sizes, the windows, the size of the cafeteria. The cafeteria, if you recall, is up on that second floor, and it's a pretty small cafeteria, relative to the size of the school. Again, some people think, hey, there's been some renovations. That whole, Pope Gym and some of those classrooms over there that you see on the left, of course, that's new construction, but, none of the core of the building, was part of that, those additions that were put on. Some other notes about Northside Middle School. Penn Forest Elementary, like I noted, was originally one of those open concept classrooms, but at some point, I don't have the year on here, a lot of that was mitigated, and so there were walls put up to try to mitigate the open concept. But still, again, that was built in '71, so about the same time as Hidden Valley Middle School. Bird High School, of course, was front and center based on all the things that we've highlighted there, and again, fully explained in the report. So out of that study, okay, this was the order of that was recommended for you to adopt as a CIP. So again, Bird High School was the first priority to be the last high school to be fully renovated. Cundiff and Glen Cove because of the open concepts. Burton Center again was added to the CIP for the very first time. We did note that that was going to be a complete rebuild needed to be. Probably look at a relocation and all those factors. Looking back, kind of hard to put yourself through that lens, but I mean, there were a lot of unknowns about how we were going to accomplish that, right? And what that was going to look like, at the scope of it and so forth. But that's where we were back in 2019. Northside Middle School occupied that fifth spot. Again, that was new to the CIP for all the reasons that were identified and listed there. Glenver Elementary was put on there because of the classrooms. Hidden Valley Middle School was still on there. Burlington added for those same reasons. With a little note there, those could be smaller renovations because those could be combined. We just kind of made that note at the time. And then Penn Forest, of course, was still listed there. So that was sort of the rationale for why this list was developed, and what you adopted as a board back in 2019. There's a lot of data that to back up all of that, and so if you want to dig deeper and to really identify specific areas of need and what it would cost to do all that all that data is there. Square footage information, when they were built, new construction versus renovation, estimates. These are all the things that we came up with, at the time.
I think it's important to note in that last one that what we had on here for Hidden Valley Middle was 29 million. Today's sheet has 64 million.
Yeah, we're going to get to those revisions, but yeah, it's
Northside Middle was 26 and 43 now.
Right. Yeah. So what was estimated at the time is different than what we know now. So which is part of the rationale for having the conversation. One of the things that we did introduce to the board at the time were these alternative construction management approaches. So prior to the William Byrd High School renovation, we'd always had done a traditional design bid build approach. And of course, those of us who lived through that Cave Spring High School piece remember how difficult that was, because the architects had sort of designed something that was not within the budget. We learned, so we had to do a lot of work to try to mitigate that, to get that to budget. So for Byrd High School, we did a different approach, and that was the design build approach, very similar to what we've done now with RCCTC and the 2 elementary schools, and that is having teams of architects and general contractors team up to basically make a proposal and then complete the project. And it really has resulted, we have found, in a lot fewer change orders and so forth, because they're working together as a team versus architects and GCs working independently. So just as a reminder, that was all new to us back in 2019 when we first did that. And so that kind of leaves us to where we stand as far as the 2019 CIP goes. So very pleased to say, of course, Cave Spring High School was still, that renovation was still, underway when we presented this. And so that, of course, has been done and completed. That was started in 2018, so just the year before. So that project was completed. Byrd High School was completed back in 2024, so just 2 years ago. And then, of course, well underway, and looking for the next 6 to 9 months to have those other projects, completed. So a lot to be proud of, I think, as a board, as a school district, in terms of the accomplishments. So then we have those remaining schools on the list, and some questions are, are the factors still the same? As Mr. Green was pointing out, if cost change, is that going to affect decision making moving forward? Do we need to look at enrollment patterns? There's been some demographic studies done since then. Do we need to look at some redistricting, some balancing of schools to try to to increase efficiencies? We don't know what's going to happen as far as the debt formula, because we've heard some discussions about that from Board of Supervisors. And of course, also since then, we've introduced this idea of, hey, do we need to maybe utilize, for example, the current BCAT space for this public day school idea? So that, of course, is included, on your CIP. This is all kind of theory at this point, because we don't know, when we can start new things. But again, we wanted to present this today for you to start that conversation about what is it you want staff to start to look at, and what information do you want them to gather to better inform you as a board moving forward in terms of any possible changes. For example, any changes in infrastructure condition. I mean, I know we've had a lot of discussions with Mr. Kegels about just some ongoing concerns at Burlington, for example, just using that as an example. And so that might be something you want to look at, to dig deeper in, to say, hey, is that something that needs to be done ahead of some of the things, the other ones that were listed there. So I'll stop there, because my job is just to really kind of go down take a trip down memory lane and let you know why we are where we are. But really, this is a discussion for moving forward in terms of things you're wondering about, things you want staff to consider. So really, Dr. Soltis and Mr. Kegels can take it away. Ms. Peterson, of course, has the updated CIP budget. Is there anything you wanted to add about that, and to Mr. Greenway's point?
Well, what we've done over the years is we've updated the manner of coming down to the cost has changed, and just the cost per square foot itself. So back when we first began this, we take the square footage of each of the buildings, and we assign how much is going to be renovation, how much is going to be new construction, and we have a cost per square foot. So we just do the math to come up with what the cost is. We have a soft cost that gets added on as well. And so when you come all the way across, you come up with a total. What we did this year, because we have seen such an inflation in the costs, we built in a factor for inflation that we hadn't had in there before. The factor is based off of a tiered approach. And so the first 3 years, we applied a 3.5% inflation. And then years 4 to 6, we applied a 4% inflation. And then years 7 and beyond, we applied a 5% inflation for that year on each project. Just to try and gather, because when we're talking about the one project is year 2040, so that's so far off in the future you know, we have no idea where the construction costs are going to go. Gosh, with fuel prices right now, we're not even sure what our fuel prices are going to be in a month. And so all of that plays into the factor. And so if you wanted to get into the minutia of all of that, I can provide the details. I just wasn't sure if you really wanted to have all that all at one sitting.
I was at one thing. The purpose of today is not for you to make any decisions today or anything like that. It's really just to introduce the topic to you and start the discussion. And over time, ask staff for what other information you think you need to have.
Well, I think something I'd like to add. So, we were talking about doing something with the alternative school and possibly remodeling Burton, and then we look at the cost of that being like $15 million, something like that. Well, then we look around the corner and the building was sold to the state police over here that's practically a brand new building for $15 million. So I think before we start dumping millions and millions of dollars into old construction, we probably should be opening our eyes a little bit, looking for available buildings and infrastructure that's already there that could save us a ton of money. I understand that like a lot of our schools are specifically built, so it probably wouldn't make a lot of sense to do it that way, right? But like when we're taking something new on, me personally, as it stands now, I look at Burton and $15 million, and we still have an older building in a floodplain versus being able to spend $15 million and have a building like that. I wish we could have jumped on that when that opportunity arose, but I think that's something we need to look at. And and this may sound crazy too, but even renting something, I don't know, but we can't keep going down just throwing millions and millions of dollars at all these buildings. It's just not sustainable. Obviously, with the Board of Supervisors and the possibility of this agreement being broken, we need to look at alternative methods of taking care of what we need. And maybe not take till 2040 to be able to do it, right? I mean, because I think that's our goal. None of us are going to be in this room in 2040.
Right.
You plan on working that long?
And that's always been our goal. And to your point, they've already broken the agreement.
They have.
So, that's out the door. But I think you hit on a great, if they knew they were going to take an industrial site or a business site and sell it for $15 million, that would have been a wonderful thing to have said. We're not going to waste that, so you're going to repurpose it for the state police, which is a wonderful thing. Certainly not going to generate revenue like that site was supposed to have done. But if they're going to do something like that, to your point, that would have been a good idea to repurpose that if we could have and saved millions of dollars to do that. And I guess they never thought of that for us. But I think the bigger point before you get too much into the discussion is Brent's already touched on. I don't know if it makes sense to have Shelley write a formal letter and ask them, because they know what they're going to do now. They may not tell us, and they may not want to continue. I mean, they've told us in private, but they don't want to tell us in public that they want to shut schools down. But it may be something that we send them a request to say, look, you obviously broke the revenue sharing agreement. You've let us know that you're going to do that in the future. What does that mean for CIP? They've talked about taking a year off. They don't have the needs that we have, so that's easy to do. But for us, and the need, and back to Brent's point, same thing that Don Butzer brought up 6 or 8 years ago was, how are you going to get these schools done? How are you going to rent them? How are you going to stay relevant with these schools in an era of 20 years, or not, being down the road 20 years, and we're talking about we might get 1 or 2 of these done. There's so much to unpack from that. But as I've thought about this a lot, I wonder if it wouldn't make sense to just send them a request and say, look, you obviously know what you're going to do, or you've talked about it and you're pretty decided on what you're going to do. Why don't you share that with us so that we know that if we're planning to do anything with these schools, it's not going to make a lot of sense for us to sit here and spend hours and hours and spin our wheels and get a plan together. Because again, we went from 10 million, you talk about the price of inflation, which I totally agree with. Remember what our arguments were 6 or 8 years ago was, you gave us $10 million to work with in 2004. We're in 2020 trying to build the same schools and try and renovate at $10 million. it just doesn't compute because inflation has just killed us. So now, we finally got them. We only wanted to go to 17, 17, 17, and they gave us 20, 20, 20. Now they're going to take that back, and who knows what they're going to do. But I wish they would just come out and not worry about elections and just tell us, you want us to close schools? What do you want us to do? What are you going to give us next year so that we know? I mean, let's just quit beating around the bush and let us know what they're going to do. I think it's worth sending a letter and just asking them, are you going down to 15 million, 15, 15, 15? Are you taking a year off? What are we doing? But, these numbers are astronomical. So, I thought we had a daunting task in 2020 when we were able to get 5 members not to think in their own district to do CTE. Now we're talking about they're going to reduce the CIP, and yet you've got these aging infrastructure of buildings, and all they talk about in their meetings are the aging infrastructure of buildings they have, which is nothing comparable to what we have. So I think it makes sense to do that before we really dive in. We really can't do renovations if we can't fund them.
Well, if we really don't know what direction to go, we could be spinning wheels and wasting our time.
Right, that's right.
We don't know what we're doing. I mean, they refused to have a joint meeting, so I know that was getting ready to come out.
You need to
Just
get me
say it.
started on that. Don't entice me.
Well, I think your point's valid. It's hard to know where to start and where we can go from here if we don't have all of that information, because the money is really what it comes down to.
And I really feel like Burlington is an emergency. I don't know if that's the case or not. We haven't talked specifics, but I know that it's busting at the seams.
I think, probably emergency isn't right where we are. Certainly it's a safe school currently, but I think that, Mr. Cagle, this is where I think you might want to, ask him by whatever means he recommends to, do some further digging as far as the infrastructure goes, because I think he does have some concerns just for the next.
Should we ask him to send us an email rather than do it here, just to give us some of those concerns for schools?
I don't think specific concerns there. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what we're insinuating is how we should go about assessing those things. We need to update the facility condition assessment report. It's about 10 years old now, and so that needs to be, my opinion, that needs to be the first step. In regards to Burlington specifically, we have had some sort of structural things over there, but we've been addressing them through maintenance, new gutters and woodwork around the building, renovated those classrooms. We had to take off part of the brick facade and rebuild it last year because it was peeling off the building. Section of the roof is new. It needs more, but we have done some things to kind of stabilize what we have. But yeah, I think the starting point is updating the report.
And maybe instead of saying concerns, we have questions to make sure that things are still pretty stable.
And that's a wonderful point. When you start doing the things you're talking about doing, what does that do? That takes away from the ability to fund a lot of these other things that need to be updated or continually maintained, whether it be HVACs or electrical or roofs or whatever. But anyway, it's
Are these assessments that your guys do, or do we have to hire people to come in and do?
That was done by OWPL.
I think she's
So
asking, would we need to hire a third party to answer some of the questions that we think ought to be answered?
Yeah, I think so. We're going to need architects.
So that's the other question, then. There's a cost involved with that, right? So how far are we going down that road until we know?
Exactly. How far are we going to go until we know what the intentions of the board of supervisors are?
Right. I mean, I
It's
think
not
all of
just
those.
time, it's money we're talking
Right.
about.
Yeah. I mean, I think all of those things are good. I think there's probably some reassessment here would be helpful, and there may be changes that we decide we need to make, but I'm not sure how much we want to spend until we know what we're going to have. I mean, are these things still on the list? Are we still going to be able to do these things? What are they thinking? And I don't want to spend money on assessments if we find out in the end these are things that are not going to happen, or they're really farther down the road than we thought. So
That's pointless.
yeah,
I mean, we spent
so-
pretty much what, 50,000 for Burton,
Yeah, what was that cost?
just to do an assessment.
Just to do the
Right.
assessment. I mean, it was 50,000. So you look at the buildings we're talking about, we're going to get into
Yeah.
hundreds of
And there
thousands of
probably,
dollars.
I mean, to Tim's point, there probably are changes that need to be made in this. But do we want to go down that road until we have some answers? So
Yeah, I think
What I might suggest is let me get you pricing on updating that report,
That might
because
be
that report probably needs to be updated regardless of what we're gonna do. Because it tells us, for instance, the condition of the roofs and just for maintenance planning purposes. Because it's been 10 years since it was done, we probably need that information anyway, just as a maintenance guide. And once you have pricing, you can kind of determine whether or not you wanna move forward with it or not.
okay.
And you could still target, a shorter list of buildings versus do them all.
Oh, absolutely.
I think I'm hearing that report currently being 10 years old, really, I mean, if we're going to try to charge ahead on things we planned out for the next till 2036, it doesn't make sense to do it on an already 10-year-old plan. So if we're going to evaluate the CIP and figure out what we can move, we're going to have to do that kind of assessment regardless. And that's irrespective of whether or not the Board of Supervisors says you're going to get.
I think we need both, though. I mean, there's no use.
Yeah, we can
Forging
do them
ahead,
simultaneously. We can still push ahead on the other two.
I just
Because
don't
we're
want to
not
spend
gonna-
hundreds of thousands of dollars for something that
Right.
is going to be irrelevant in 5
Right.
years and we have no money.
Right. Yep. Thank you.
Yes. Do you guys have any other questions? Okay. All right. Well, if there's nothing further, meeting adjourned.
Thank you.